Hello guys, in a second I will go live and start the stream. Okay, cool. So let's get started, shall we? Let me just get this chat in the way. Okay, cool. So let's start this. So I'm going to be doing more work on my Ghidra static bug finder, particularly there are a few problems I've noticed as I was using it, and I'm going to start working through them. The first one is like what we're seeing right here. For sprintf, the bug check that I have working is effectively does a format string within the sprintf call have a %s in it, and if so, flag it. However, one thing you might see is an instance like this, where the argument to the %s is a static string, and in this scenario, frankly, I'm not interested in flagging it. However, we see here that when you run Phalanx against it, it will actually still flag sprintf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an additional condition or logic that will effectively, it'll realize, oh hey, there's a %s here. Can we actually see what the argument is there, and is it a static string, and if so, not flag it. So let's get around and start working on that. So let me pull up Sublime Text. Here we go. Okay, so it's here. The check for that is %s. So also what I will probably do is I'll probably make this into a second check. That way, for let's say if this logic of trying to resolve the argument fails or causes some sort of issue, I will still have like a lesser check that would potentially still flag it still. And it also neatly split the two, or I might have some other mechanism in order to deal with that. But okay, cool. So here, with looking at this %s check, we are able to resolve the format string argument here. Also, welcome new chat viewers. Feel free to ask a question in the chat if you don't know what's going on. So what I want to be able to do is first gauge which argument in sprintf is going to be the one related to the %s, since we might have a scenario where there are multiple format strings like %d, %s. For that, I'm first going to make a separate, actually, how do I want to do this? I am first just going to add a print statement here that will just print out the format string as a step 1, and then after that I'm going to try and add logic where it will count the number of % characters in the string. That should be tag process, not tag import, since the binary has already been imported into the project. Okay, it got printed right there, %s. Okay, cool. I'm gonna look up, is there like a Java string.count, Java count instances of character in string? Okay, it looks like I might just have to write a simple function to do that. Let's go ahead and just do that. Checks. Where do I want to write this in the code base? I'll do it here. Public int count format strings, and I'll give it an input string. First, I'm going to do a check just to make sure that the input string is not equal to null, since Ghidra might have an issue resolving certain strings and return a null value. So I'm just going to have a basic sanity check here. If input string dot is equal to 0, return 0. Check. Actually, I'm not going to comment that. So let's do this. We're going to iterate through each character of the string. Is less than input string dot length. I think this is a method, not an attribute. I++ and format string count is equal to 0. Format string count plus equals 1. Okay. Actually, we need to have a check here if input. Actually, there's a better way I can do this. Let me Java. Actually, yeah, there's a better way I can do this. Instead of doing it this way, I can do it for char current char in input string if current char is equal to % format string count plus equals 1. And let's go ahead and call this on our format string. It's in the %s function, so let's find that. Okay, let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. For each not applicable. Okay, so looks like there were some errors with how I did this. Let's go ahead and fix them. Just looks like some basic Java issues from me not knowing how to code Java. I'm just going to get rid of this line since, frankly, if it is an empty string, it really shouldn't matter. The algorithm should still work just fine. Java. I'm just going to Google quickly what's the proper way to actually iterate through. Actually, so Java string dot to char array. Okay, there is a dot to char array method, so that should work, or might not work. Okay, it did work. Cool. Count format strings. Let's go ahead and print the output of this so we can see if it is working in this instance. It should be outputting 1. Okay, it is outputting 1. What I might want to do in this instance is change it. Change it from because, okay, so we have a function now. We can tell the number of format strings in a larger format string. What I mean by a format string is like the %s, %d. I should probably say format flags. Now, what we need to do, are there... So, sorry, let's look at something else for a second. So, what we need to do is... Sorry, I keep getting distracted. Yeah, so what we need to do is so we can first tell the number of format flags within a format string. We need to be able to actually tell, like, which ones are %s, and then go ahead and that way we can enumerate that, hey, the third argument and the fifth argument supply into a %s. For that, actually, I think in order to do that, we're going to want to do a little bit of a redesign here. Now that I think about it, count format strings, this argument isn't really going to, this function, we really aren't going to need it. We're going to have that code implemented into the %s check. So, this is what I'm going to do. If format string does not equal to null, well, actually, if it is equal to null, we just continue. So if we get to the string, it should actually be a string. What we are going to do is you're going to iterate through the characters in here, and what this will do is, here, let me also add the int format string count equals 0, and we're also going to have the same code in there for if it is equal to percent format string count plus equals 1. And also, what we're going to do is we're going to add in a check here that if, actually, what we can also do here is add in a check that if the current format modifier is a %s, that then we can go ahead and save that particular argument for later. That way, effectively, we're doing this method is actual. These are the arguments which should supply into a %s. So how can we do this? What I'll probably want to do is switch this over to a like for int. I effectively iterate via the index, not just through all the characters. Reason for that being, since we're iterating by index, we can just easily check what the next character is by doing like grabbing the character +1, y less than, or I plus equals 1, char input string array equals okay, cool. So we have this going. Input string array equals input string dot to char array. What we can do is input string array I is equal to that. I plus 1 is equal to %s. So if we get to this instance, actually, we will need to add an OR statement for in case if it's a larger s. And this needs to be just s, not %s, since we're looking at only the individual character immediately following the percent sign. So if we get to here, what we know is that the current argument is a %s, and we also know the index at, well, which format modifier it is, if it's the first one, if it's the third one, so we know which argument to look at. That's what's important here. What we can do is now we can get address arg. What we're going to do is we're going to try to resolve the argument as if it was a string. If it succeeds, then we know it's a string argument and we don't care about it. If it fails, then we can assume that it is not. It is a variable, and that we do care. Well, it is a variable, has a variable value, and we care about it then. So we can go ahead and effectively just off. Wait, where is offset coming from? There's a little bit more to this I'm going to need. We have inputs, format var node. Actually, I just realized one thing that we're going to need. We're going to also need to do a check here just to make sure, since we're doing the current, since the index is iterating through all indices in the input string, including the last one, and here we're doing I plus var node. We're just going to need to add if I is less than input string dot length -2. Reason why -2 is because the size -1 is the final indice, and we're doing +1, so we need to move it back by 1. If it is equal to that, break. So if we reach here, that +1 should not break it, so that's what's important here. So in order to get this, we're going to need to get the var node. We already have all the inputs to the P code right here, so what we should be able to do is do var node %s input is equal to inputs format string arg plus. So for %s, in terms of the P code, the first input is going to be the address being called, so printf. Second argument is going to be the destination. Third argument is going to be the format string. And starting with the fourth argument is where the actual arguments to the format modifiers in the format string begin. Since we're starting the format string count off with 0, starting off with 0, and how I'm doing my indices for the inputs, I'm starting off with the first argument is 0. The first variable arg list argument is going to be at indice 3, so I'm going to need to add 3 to this. Actually, that is what I'm going to need to be able to do. However, there's one thing I'm going to be able to do. Well, I'll want to do before that. Format string count plus 3, since format string is the number of format modifiers we've come across so far. I'm just going to add a quick check here. Format string count is greater than or equal to inputs.length. I'm just doing a quick sanity check here just to verify that we aren't iterating past the end of the inputs index and causing a potential crash that way. Int format index equals to format string count plus 3. So we have that. I'm just writing awful code today, I'm so tired. Okay, format index is equal to that. If format index is greater than that, break. And then the var node should be at format index. So where does that leave us here? We have the var node. We now should be able to effectively get the offset. If offset is equal to 0, return address, data address is equal to get address from offset. Offset string format string is equal to get string at data address. Format string is equal to null. Actually, if it does not equal to null. Okay, so if we get to here, we can successfully resolve the address. Now, this is I'm going to think for a second, because the thing is here, we're checking to see if we cannot resolve it. So here, what do we need? We have two checks here to effectively verify that if we can actually resolve it. The first being if offset is equal to 0, and the second being if format string is not null, or if it is, I want to switch it to if it is null. What does get string actually return? I need to look at this function. I forget what it does. Okay, so in the instance that I can't actually return anything, it just returns an empty string. So let's go back here. I'm going to do a dot equals, if it equals an empty string, since that is the return value from it that indicates, hey, it's not working right. So if it either happens here or here, if either the code within here or here gets called, that means the argument is not or should not be a static string. So that's when we actually call this. And we can just go ahead and comment that out. Just make sure that this okay, I think this might work, but let's go ahead and try it. This should not be flagged. Okay, a lot of issues. Is input 805. Oh, okay, I did this wrong. This is what I get for copying and pasting code. I wrote in another function. Oh my gosh, I'm just making so many mistakes today. It's format string, not the count. There should be input string array.length. swap that over. There's probably going to be a few more errors in here that I'll have to run to a few more times to debug fully. Yep. Format string dot to, oh, this is what I get for writing a lot of lines of code without running it. This should be a char array. Man, I'm just made so many little mistakes. Bad operand. Okay, so see here, I'm gonna fix this issue where it's just I renamed the same thing. That should fix it. Or at least all but the error with the character comparison. Yep. Okay, I'm just gonna look up what's the proper way to, oh wait. I think the issue is in Java, in order to specify a character, you have to have single quotes, not double quote. Okay, cool, so that worked. It didn't flag it, which is what we wanted. I'm just going to go ahead and run some of them on the other test cases just to make sure that they still flag those. I think that might have already been imported into this project. Let's see. What is the... What is the code for Sorrento 3? Okay, cool. So it should get flagged, but it's not getting flagged, which means I broke it. Let's go ahead and figure out what I did wrong. Let's first just make sure that it is at least recognizing that there is a %s in here. So I'm just going to throw in a print statement here. Okay, cool. So it is actually reaching here. I'm going to make sure. I'm going to see what is the format argument that it is specifying here, or the format index that it's seeing here. Okay, so it's recognizing that's the third one. So let's go ahead and see what is the offset is getting. Okay, let's see, what does it get? What is this value in hex? So it's getting an offset that's a little. Let's see what's happening with get var node def val under the hood. Get the feeling that it's returning a value. What is the... Actually, let's look at the P code that is defining the var node. That should probably give us some introspection to what that offset value, where it's coming from. Okay, so you can see exactly where it's coming from. It's coming from the constant right there. I wonder, is it actually able to resolve a string? And if so, what string is it resolving? Okay, let's run this and see what's happening. It's resolving %s, which that tells me, is it just an issue where... So the argument that we're looking at should be the third argument to sprintf, but we're able to resolve the string for the second argument. So I'm going to try just moving forward the index by 1 and see if that fixes the problem. Okay, so this is a little bit interesting. We incremented it by 1, but that appears to have surpassed the, what is it? The, range of our input array. So I'm going to try just printing it so we can see what the input array looks like there. Input array being the var node inputs to the P code. Actually, can we just print the P code call site? No, that current P code. I'm just going to try printing this. Let's see what the P code itself looks like. So call sprintf destination. What is this? This will be the format string, and this is the argument. 0, 1, 2, 3. Doesn't make sense though. Yeah, this should be +3. What is the input? Or what var node is actually grabbing? So it is grabbing the last one, which should be the %s. I'll be right back for a second. Okay, I'm back. I wonder what would happen if we switch this to 2. I don't think this... Because it's looking at the final argument and resolving %s, so... Which is the second argument. Wait a second. Oh my gosh, I'm stupid. This is the issue. I can see it right here. Okay, it is flagging it. So the issue was, since I copied pasted code over there, I forgot to change the var node that I was looking at to this one instead of looking at the one that I was initially looking at being the format. The actual one for the format string, that's why I was resolving that. However, we switched that, so that's good. Let's go ahead and run it against sprintf4 and make sure that it isn't flagging that one. It did not flag it. I'm going to get rid of some of these print statements just to clean this up a bit. Is there a print statement in here? There is a print statement. Okay, cool. I'm just going to run it against the other sprintfs just to make sure that it is indeed flagging them still. I believe they should be flagged. Let's look at sprintf2 and just make sure, see what's going on there. This should not be flagged, which it did not flag. It was %5s, not %s. So let's look at sprintf1. This should be flagged. Let's try that one. Okay, that one was flagged. That's good. This one should also be flagged. Let's just make sure. Okay, that was flagged. Cool. So this stream has been going on for 40 minutes, so I'm going to cut it off here. In conclusion, what we were able to just do is just edit the sprintf check with %s. That will also run a secondary check on the corresponding argument to the sprintf call to see is this a static string, and if it is a static string, just ignore the call. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Go ahead and end the stream now.